Yeah. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome again to another workshop in the series. So excited to have you here. And yeah, and I hope more and more come in. And I mean, if it's a small group, I mean, even that means you get to ask even more questions. Today we're going to be talking about the UR2 PhD undergrad course, undergrad research training course. And with us we have Brian Harrington, who's a professor from University of Toronto, who's going to be, kind of also who is a part of this program, who has, like worked with the program for a little bit. So, and the goal for today is for us to tell you about what the course is, what are the benefits of the course, and then walk you through both of our experiences. We have both kind of worked with the UR2 PhD program, and we've both had students, undergrad students, take that research training course. And the idea is that the two of us are going to walk you through our experience and tell you, the lessons learned and the things we like, or maybe who knows, dislike, or things that we'd like to incorporate, and how we work with our students through that course. And then we'll end with Q&A. And when I say end with Q&A, it doesn't mean that you are not allowed to ask questions in the middle. Please, please, please feel free to, just send your questions to chat, send your questions to Q&A, just like share your questions with us at any point of time, and we would be happy to answer questions throughout. Sounds good? All right, so we're going to get started. So again, this is one of the workshops for the Computing Research Engagement and Awareness series, and it's on demystifying the UR2 PhD undergrad research training course. That is, and it was led by myself, so I forgot to introduce myself. My name is I'm Christine Bassam. I am a faculty at Wellesley College, and I am a workshop designer and facilitator for this workshop series. All right, so what are we going to learn today? The three main points are: understand the benefits of the undergrad research training course. Like, what is that? What, not the course, but in general, research training. Why is it a good thing to do? Why is it a good idea? And then we'll move on to talking specifically about the UR2 PhD research training course. We'll just get brief snippets about it. But of course, if you have more questions, we are ready to answer the questions. We have worked with our students through that course throughout the year, and we have, we can answer your detailed questions if you want to. Also, if you have any other questions about the rest of the program, we're happy to help. Then that takes us to the last point. Hopefully, by the end of this, you'll feel encouraged to seek out research opportunities as undergraduates. That's the goal for today. All right. What do we encourage you to do? Be curious. So curiosity is always a key point. Ask a lot of questions. So curious and silent is okay, but curious and talking and asking questions is like the key point here. We're here to help you. We're here to guide you. We're here to, answer your questions. All right. So undergraduate research. I'm going to start just with the basic, very, very quick. Talk about like what is undergraduate research in case you have not had the experience of that yet. So what is undergraduate research? Well, just in general, what is research? Research is the discovery of new knowledge about the world. So new knowledge in terms of what? It could be the new concept. It could be about how a concept works, that knowledge, the discovery works, or it could be about how to create something. So research is, it's a very, very broad definition. It covers almost everything. Anything that you can create, it's considered a type of research. What about computing research specifically? Well, computing research is a type of research that focuses on something that's related to computing. Like what? Like creating new algorithms. Algorithms, in other words, new solutions. Creating structures, data structures to solve things or to store information, creating new systems, or creating new methodology in general. So as well as how these ideas shape and are shaped by the world. So a thing not to forget about computing research, that it's not just, the goal is not just to create the thing, but also to think about how it impacts the world. How does it shape the world? What is the point of it? What's the benefit of it? And the impact of it on the world. So just a thing to always remember that computing is not just about having the code run. It's all about the impact. There's also a lot about the impact. All right. And if you want to learn more, we would like to refer you to spark.cra.org. It's an awesome, awesome website. That's kind of the information there has been populated over the years and by a lot of experts who work with undergrad students and and grad students in general. And it's all about what is computing research. It's focused mainly on computing research and resources. And just FYI, this is mostly formatted and targeted for students in North America, because this is what the program targets. So just to know that like most of the references and information that you'll find there is more about like North American institutions. All right. Okay, so again, what would it look like? Now, here are just some examples. And by the way, this is not an exhaustive list. This is just some examples that we've gotten from previous researchers. So it could be replicating, what can you do as an undergraduate researcher? Maybe your project is about replicating an existing study. So it could be that you're already starting from pre-existing work, you're trying to replicate it, And then your goal is to replicate it. That's, by the way, research in itself. You'll be surprised how hard it is to replicate things in our field. And then it could be that you can also add to it. You can extend it. You can add it. You can try it out with different data. Try it out in different assumptions. So this is considered research. What else? You could study the state-of-the-art software tools on a new data set with different characteristics than software was originally designed. Meaning what? Meaning that research in itself doesn't have to be in creating something new. It could be that you are trying out different new combination of tools together, combination of solutions together to see how they would fit. That's also research. What else? You could be conducting a human subject study on a specific user interface or tool. So again, it doesn't have to be writing code. Research in computing is very big. It's huge. You can do so many different things. You can be modifying and evaluating existing software to implement a new idea based on a hypothesis. So this is where there's that research where you're creating something new. Maybe you have a new idea, and in order to evaluate the new idea, you need to build something. Oops, that went. Okay. You could be analyzing a data set for specific characteristics. I mean, data science research, it's all about analyzing data, asking questions, answering the questions, figuring out how to get the answers from the data. You could be evaluating a system that's creating for automating a task. So it could be pre-existing systems, and your goal is to evaluate whether it works or not. Again, research is huge. There's so many things you could do. It could also be just about visualizing already collected data. And I said the word just in this, but out of experience, it is not a just. Visualization is a big deal. It is not an easy thing to do. And it turns out like it's a whole area of research on its own. So visualization on its own of already collected data is an amazing type of research as well. Sounds good? So these are just examples of snippets of things you can do as an undergrad. All right. So with that, let's move on to research training then. So like the focus of this workshop, remember, is all about the research training course. So what's research training? Research training is any opportunity to participate in structured research under the mentorship of an expert in the field. So here's the thing, and you'll notice this, by the way, in the way that the UR2 PhD program is designed. You need to have a mentor. You can't just do this on your own, because the idea of training is to get the training from an expert. So what is research training again? It's all about being in structured research under the mentorship of an expert in the field. How can you achieve this? Now, as undergrad students who are watching this and who are part of the workshop right now, how can you achieve this? Well, generally two things. You can either join a research lab at your institution, so find a faculty, a professor, figure out what they're doing, or a grad student, figure out what they're doing. If you enjoy it, go and join their research lab. Or there's another way to get research training is that maybe you're not working right away on a research project, but you're taking or you're completing a research training course. That's another way to get training. You're getting trained on what research is so that then you can get the skills, learn the skills that will then help you, join a lab or work on a research project. Or you can do both. And this is where really, actually, most of our students, at least in my experience, and then Brian, you can share your experience as well later on when Brian shares. From my experience, I see students usually doing the two things together. They're usually in a lab because they want to work on something, and then they take the course to kind of, add on to their skills. Where can you find those opportunities? So I'm not going to talk in details about how you can go find those opportunities in your institution because we have other workshops on that. So I highly, highly recommend that you go to our website. We're going to share the link in a little bit and go look at the other previous workshops in this series that talk more about like how to really find those opportunities. But for now, I just want you to know you can find those opportunities locally at your institution. But if you don't have access to such opportunities, this is where the UR2 PhD program is amazing. It's virtual. It is offered to students across North America. And the idea of the program is that it offers virtual resources for undergraduates interested in computing research. It is a way to get that training if you can't find the structure in your own institution. Sounds good? All right. So to give you just a quick snippet, and this is where I said we're going to talk quickly about UR2 PhD. So UR2 PhD, just to tell you what the acronym is for, CS is full of acronyms. CS in itself is an acronym, I just realized. So computer science is full of acronyms. UR2 PhD is short for undergraduate research. 2 PhD. PhD is like philosophy doctorate degree, activities for undergrads. And I just want to note for people who are maybe joining for the first time or watching this and haven't watched previous workshops, that the goal is not for you to go get a PhD. The goal for you is to experience research. It's to know what research is. That's the goal of it. There's 3 main components currently in that program, 3 main pillars. One is from an undergraduate perspective, there's the undergraduate research training course, and this is the one that we're really focusing on today. There's also the computing research engagement and awareness workshop, which is the current workshop you're attending. This is where you're at right now. This is the one you're attending right now. We also have graduate school application workshops for computing programs. So just know that there's another series of workshops that's all about how to apply to grad school and how to prepare your application. All right. So now let's transition to the UR2 PhD research training course. And this is the link down there if you want to have more information. And we have the link again also towards the end of the talk. I'm just going to briefly give you an overview, and then we're going to transition to more of the discussion of our own experiences. So to give you a little bit of overview about the course, the way that it was designed as part of the UR2 PhD program. What are the objectives? So I'm really going to just ask some very main questions like what, how, why, when, and all of that, just the general main questions about the course. And I'm happy to add more details if you have, if you want to know more. What are the course objectives? So I am not ashamed of this. I actually copied parts of this from the main website, from the actual course description here, because it doesn't make sense for me to rewrite the objective. Like there is an objective. This course was designed over a long period of time, and it had very clear and very specific objectives. And objectives are as follows. It is to introduce students, really that's the main one, is to introduce students to the basics of research in computer science. That's really the main point. It's an introduction to research, it's a training. What are you going to learn? Well, some of the things you're going to learn are what a research problem in CS looks like. What does it mean to work on a research problem? How to read and find research papers. That's like a very, very important thing to learn when you're doing research. How to find and read research papers, how to find related work, how to just not work in a vacuum, but to know what already exists. How to articulate the problem. That was one of the hardest things. That was one of the first things I had to learn as a grad student. I didn't learn that as an undergrad. I was told the problem, but in this course, you learn how to articulate it. And I love that about this course. How to articulate a problem, how to actually like take those like very vague ideas or very scattered ideas and put them together in a 1-page or 2-page description where you're actually able to just share the document with others. That's a very hard skill. How to propose a research project to solve the problem. So did you notice how it's all about the problem? It's a transition. First, you identify the general thing you want to work on. What is the problem you want to solve? You go figure out related work and like, has it been solved? How has it been solved? If related things have been solved. And then you go and articulate, well, okay, what is the problem? Like from your point of view, like what is still missing? Like what is it that you really want to focus on and hone in and try and solve and work on in your research project? And then you learn about how to then what is the goal? Now, what's the research project going to be about? So now that you've identified the problem and you've been able to articulate it, now what is your research project about? And this is where at the end you actually write a proposal for that research project. Again, an amazing skill that my students now know how to do, things that I didn't learn until I was a grad student. What else? Throughout, so these are the general, I think of it as the general skeleton of the course. Like those are the main ideas, the main goals of the course. But throughout the course, for the different sessions you're taking, because it's a 10-week course, throughout the course, you're learning so many other soft skills. And I'm not going to be able to list all of them here because there's really a lot of soft skills. And this is really what some of the skills that are usually hidden. They're not explicitly mentioned, but they're critical to being a good and a successful and a healthy researcher, also if you want to add that. What skills do you learn? Like some of the snippets of skills, and these are some that my students actually highlighted. And that's why I mentioned them. Time management. It's one of the things that some of my students said that like they were so happy that they've learned some of that throughout the course. Writing proposals is a big deal. That's actually my perspective as an advisor. I was like, oh, you know how to write proposals now. That's a big deal. Like, because when they were writing the proposals, they were actually asking the right questions of like, but wait, what is that for again? What was the point? Why are we doing this? Why does this matter? This is when you realize, wait, I missed something. In order for me to write the proposal, I need to know, like, wait, why are we even doing this? I'm not doing it for the sake of having the check in my CV. I'm doing this for a purpose. What's the purpose of this? And collaborative work. That's also one of the big things that my students mentioned as a benefit, like collaborative work. They actually get to work together because that's actually one of the rules of the course. You have to be working with someone. So that's good. All right. And communication. Oh, at the end, you have to communicate all of this. You don't just write a document and you're done. You have to present it. You have to discuss it. There's actually multiple discussions. It's a very interactive course where you have multiple discussions and you have to communicate like your ideas throughout. All right. So these are like a snippet of the course objectives and a summary of the course objectives as mentioned by the course designers. Now, who are the audience? Like, who is the audience for this? Just a reminder, this is really designed for first-time researchers. So it's really, this is who it's designed for. First-time researchers, so undergrads, it prepares participants to pursue additional research opportunities with their mentors. That's the idea, that it's structured well enough that it provides support for faculty mentors to work with the undergrads. So basically it prepares the undergraduate students well enough that the faculty mentors then are able to do more work with them and do more in-depth research with them. Undergraduate, now here's the thing, this is just a little bit of like, I have to mention some of the details here. Because of the, the eligibility requirements of the program, the course, to take the course, the undergrad student must be currently enrolled in a North American institution. So that's really like a big rule here. You are welcome to attend all the workshops. You are welcome to attend all the sessions. You're welcome to watch all the other videos of the workshops. If you're not enrolled in a North American institution, it's just to take the course, you need to be enrolled in a North American institution. What else? You need to have a research mentor. So here's the thing, it has to be structured. We talked about the structure here. So you need to have a research mentor, you need to have an identified project that you're going to work on, and a team. So in order to take the course, a student cannot take the course on their own. Students need to work in at least pairs, so teams of 2 to 4, in order to take the course together. And the idea is that it's the program's hope that all students then will continue with research beyond the course. So the idea is not just like, oh, a 1 semester course and you're done. The idea is that this course will prepare you to continue the research and go on and then like create the work and present it and go and publish it in local, regional, and national venues. All right, so what is the general course structure? And we talked briefly about the general objectives and things that you would achieve. The course is structured into, so it's synchronous and virtual, but it's synchronous for over a period of 10 weeks. I don't know if this is going to change in the future, but just currently, it is set up as like 2-hour classes every week for the period of 10 weeks. The first 5 weeks, so sessions 1 to 5, are focused on reading research papers. What are they? Understanding their structure, literature review, and technical writing. So that's what it's focused on at the beginning. And then sessions 6 to 8, which is kind of the middle, this is where it's all about data collection, analysis, and presentation. This is when they're preparing the students to really go more in depth and learn more about what does it mean to work with data, analyze data, and present findings and present results. And then the last 2 sessions are all on research ethics, understanding the impact of your work, proposals, formal presentations, and reflections on the things that you do. So that's like the general structure of the course. And just to say a little side note here, the way that the course is structured is that all of those topics and skills that you're learning, they are done from a general perspective, and students who are working on a specific project then go and focus on that project. Meaning what? So I'll give you an example. Research papers. When they're teaching you how to read research papers or how to do literature review, they're teaching you the basic skills, and then the students themselves in the class, they group together and they do the literature review, or they do the paper reading or the paper analysis together on papers that are related to the project that they're working on with their mentor. It's all designed that way. All right, now why would I take the course? There are many reasons to get involved, really. I mean, I feel like you're already here in this workshop wanting to learn more about it. So why would you take about it? Why would you take it? Well, first of all, maybe you're interested in research. Maybe you're curious about research. But there's a lot of other reasons. Like you can be, it's a way for you to be part of the ever-growing UR2 PhD cohort of students. So there are now cohorts, I think so far, and Julia, please correct me if I'm wrong. It's been going on for 2 years now. I think the program has been working successfully for 2 years. We have like 2 years worth of cohorts, right?
Yes, the first cohort launched in fall of 2023, so we are in our 2nd year and we're having our 5th cohort this summer.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yes. So like the group is growing. There's a lot of other, like these are all undergraduates who wanted to do research and who are interested in doing research just like you. So just like it's amazing to be part of that cohort. Also, so even if you're not doing research right away, this course allows you to learn, practice, and apply skills necessary to conduct research. So, and by the way, the way it's designed, it's usually like if you're involved in that course, usually faculty are encouraged to give you credit or get paid. So usually the course just comes also with either credit or paid, and that depends on your institution. What else? It allows you to expand your understanding of computing research. Like you get to hear about the research of other students from other labs, from other institutions, from other part of the continent. So like you're like from North America, like you get to learn more. You get to grow your knowledge about research opportunities and careers, as well as graduate school. So all the workshops, there's always snippets about what's next. And what else? And this is also another good benefit. Become eligible for additional funding opportunities, including travel and research opportunities in the summer, and REUs in the summer. So this is, again, these are all amazing reasons, some of the amazing reasons for why you should, think and consider taking the course. All right. One last piece of information here is, when is the course offered? Like, when should I apply? Like, when does it happen? The course is offered multiple times during the year. Currently, the structure is that it's offered summer, fall, and spring. So there are 3 sessions a year. Just for now, for the remainder of 2025, we have over here for you the timeline for for the 2 sessions that are left in the year. There's the summer session that starts on June 3rd, and there is the fall session that starts September 23rd. And please note the deadlines to apply for those sessions. All right, so these are the timelines. Now we're going to transition to the panel type format, where Brian and I are going to talk about our experiences as faculty mentors and coordinators. Like, how was it like for our students, and how, what benefit did the UR2 PhD research training course bring to our students? And with this, I would like to invite Brian to talk.
Thank you very much, Christine. Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Harrington. I am a professor teaching stream computer science at the University of Toronto. I have been off and on working with the UR2 PhD for a while, but I actually just had my first cohort properly make it through. And in fact, I'm sending another cohort to work through this summer. So what I thought, I apologize, my voice is croaky. I'm getting a bit of a cold, so if my voice is croaky, I apologize. What I thought I would do today is talk a little bit about my journey up to the UR2 PhD program and how I got involved in undergraduate research. And the sort of pros and cons of various methods I have tried, and how getting into the UR2 PhD program kind of hit the sweet spot for me. So I guess, Christine, if you can next. So the first introduction to undergraduate research for me. So my original research was in artificial intelligence and language processing. But then a few years later, I went into teaching and sort of stopped my AI language processing research and started to get into pedagogy, researching, what works, what influences students, how they can learn computer science better, that sort of thing. And I always like to try little things, little experiments. So one experiment that I tried, and I didn't really have a good sense of what I was doing, I said, hey, what'd be really interesting is to get students to predict their own marks on the exam. And so I said, oh, well, we could do that. We could sort of get each student to fill in their own mark sheet and guess what their own marks would be. And I don't know what. So I did this and I sort of had it ready. And then I went, you know what? There's a lot of data here. It's a big course with like 500 or 600 students. And I just said, I don't have the time or the wherewithal to code all this data, to play with this data, do statistical analysis. And it just so happened that a couple of students that I had been talking to separately said, we would love to do that. And we would love to do the analysis with you. We would love to do the statistics for you. We'll sit there. They actually came to the campus on New Year's Day because we had a deadline coming up, and they hand coded all of the papers to put it into a spreadsheet. And it resulted in one of my favorite all-time papers and one of my favorite all-time graphs, which was here. The actual marks of male and female students, you see almost identical. The predicted marks of male and female students, males predicted, I think, almost 15% higher. Wow, what a cool finding. And I never would have got there if it wasn't for these students. Next. So there's some great things about this, right? These students got on the publications. They were full authors on the publications. I got a publication that I wouldn't otherwise have gotten out. And it was, something I was very proud to have published and, into a full conference, et cetera, et cetera. And I tried this a couple times, but the big downside is doing 1 or 2 projects a year. I need to sort of have my own projects underway. and then happened to have students who happened to be ready to do this. So it largely fell into what students happened to be available at the time when I needed data processed or I needed some work done. And the students didn't really get the full research experience. They're just helping me analyze data and then writing up the paper. So they're not actually developing the research skills that'll help them go on to graduate school. Next. So then what I said is, okay, I'm going to go the next level and I'm going to get students and say, what do you want to evaluate? Let's start right from the beginning. You come up with a research question. You start to figure out what you want. And this is one we did really interesting. This particular work was Aliona there in the bottom there is a kinesiologist. And the other student I worked with was a educational consultant, and they were looking at the impacts of exercise on learning. So we did this, program where we had half the students listen to music during the break in a lecture, half the students did exercise, and we found that the students who did exercise actually remembered stuff better and felt better about the course and had lower stress, all that great kind of stuff. And this was an end-to-end project that they did. Next. So this is fantastic because these students got a full research experience. They got the publications. There's actually 3 of them working on it, all went on to graduate school and were very well prepared because they knew what it was to do research end to end, from coming up with an idea to publishing a paper. The downside of this is this was a 2-year gap to train 3 students, and they were all trained very well, but I was taking a big risk. There's no guarantee they were going to be up to snuff. I'm sort of taking a gamble at the beginning, and it took basically 2 years plus to just train them up. Once they graduate, I'm back to the beginning and starting to train again from scratch. Next. So then I moved on and said, okay, well, what if we go the opposite end of the spectrum? What if we just get students and do a reading group? We're going to read papers together. We're going to learn how to read them. We're going to present them to each other. Very informal, very flexible. I can, instead of 2 or 3 students at a time, I can have 20 or 30 students at a time. Next. So this was great because it got a lot more students involved. It's a much more equitable opt-in model. So what that means is I am not saying you can only work with me if you can dedicate 40 hours a week to this. If you can dedicate 2 hours a week, great. If you can dedicate 10 hours a week, that's fantastic. It lets you sort of opt in to the level that feels right for you. And it does help a lot of students get those really fundamental research skills. What do we look for in a paper? How do we read a paper? How do we start pulling things again? And it was a lot easier on my end, right? I sort of have to pick a paper and say, okay, go out and we'll work through it together. That's fairly easy. I'm going to be reading these papers anyway. I just have to give a little bit of guidance. The downside, though, is this is not enough to get students really over the hump, right? You get a sense of how to read a paper, but you have no real idea of what to do next, how to build a research question, how to design an experiment. And this doesn't actually result in these students getting a publication out of it. Next. So after all of this, after playing around with this for a couple of years, we settled on, we found the UR2 PhD program. So this is my first cohort of students who have just successfully completed that last semester's UR2 PhD program and actually been awarded with very generous grants by the CRA to spend the next year working with me on the project that they built and came up with through this project. Next. So the big pros of this is students can learn the fundamental skills. They get good quality training, right? It's not up to just me of what I think might be good training. These are scientifically proven. These are expert developed, real training skills. And students can stop at the end of that if they wish. They spend a semester doing it or spend a year doing it, or depending on your setup, and they can go, that was neat. Okay, I'm off to do something else. Or they can say, hey, I want to keep working on this project with you. And that gives them that flexibility. But what that means is at the end of that project or the end of the course, they've got a project ready to go and they can decide, is this something I now want to spend a year working on? And if not, okay, I haven't spent a huge amount of my time, and so it's not a huge loss if I can't work on it. But if they do, that's fantastic because they're now ready to hit the ground running. They know how to read a paper, they know how to do literature reviews, they have a plan, they have research ethics, all that kind of stuff. That's fantastic. The major cons in this is it is still limited in the number of students that can participate. I would love every student to have this experience. I am trying to look for ways to get more students involved in this idea. And I'm still trying to figure out, Christine was saying that we do try to either pay you for participation or give you course credit for participation. I've been kind of hodgepodging that together. I still need to figure out with my department, can I figure out how to exactly assign a course credit to this or a partial credit, et cetera, et cetera. We're still figuring that out. So there's some logistical hurdles from my end, but overall, pros vastly outweighing the cons. Next. So that's where I am. That's what I've learned in this program. It's been fantastic. I'm just looking towards the future of beyond this version. I would love to get more groups involved. Like I said, there's a group just starting this summer. They've just been approved. I'm hoping to set up a system where we can maybe get more support by having past alumni of the program support the current students doing it. So that group you just saw, they are spending the summer working on a project, but I've actually asked them to spend a sort of a half day each week talking to the existing group and helping them with their project, which will potentially then free me up more to help other future groups. Like I said, I want a more systematic way. I'd really love this to be a designated course code in our university, but I need to figure out exactly that. And there is the possibility of building up a full institutional partnership where, we can actually start sending larger numbers of students and making this a core part of our department, which I would absolutely love to do if I can sort it out. But that's potentially in the future for me. And I think that's the end of my slides.
That's perfect. Thank you. That is really exciting to learn about experiences of, faculty in other institutions. This is interesting. All right, so here's now like my short experience with the undergrad research in general, just like to kind of give you a snippet as well. So how it started. So just gonna start from the beginning, just to give you a little bit of context. So Wellesley College is a liberal arts school, and we only have undergraduate students. So that's really the idea. Is like these are the students we work with. At Wellesley College, it's the faculty-wise, there's the expectation of there's the teaching, of course, but we also are expected to maintain an active research life. So like we are expected to stay active in our research areas. And a lot of our faculty often involve the undergraduate students in the research projects. Like it is part of the structure of the college itself. So like we already love to involve our students in research. And that's what I did. When I joined, I started working with students right away. But that's when I realized that I need to first learn how to work with undergrads because I was just coming out of grad school. I had never, had the experience of working with undergraduates. And then I realized, wait a minute, my projects are too hard. I can just hire students from their first year or their second year. Not anyone who's interested was going to be able to work on my projects. And this is where I didn't take the approach of like, oh no, I need to pick the right student for this. I wanted to first learn about, no, what can I do? How can I make my projects and break it simpler? And how can I break it up into pieces so that students can work on them? And just to give you a little bit of a background, the work I do is mostly on mobility, and it's all focuses on like how to, it's kind of algorithmic in nature, a little bit theoretical on like how to move people around and how to write people like guide people in their mobility for whatever objective. So my work is a little bit algorithmic, and usually students need to have some experience or background with algorithms before they can start going deeper in things that I do. And that's where I realized, okay, they're too hard. Maybe I shouldn't start right away. So that's when my journey started. So that's where I kind of took the time to learn, to understand, to get training, to ask experts, to ask people who are already there, like, what do you do? How can I do this better? And that's where like gradually it grew. So I started with a reading group. So it's like this is not the same idea, the reading group, where it was really focused on here are some of the things that I like to do, here's some of the things related to what I do. And it wasn't just my own research. A few of the junior faculty actually, we got together. I think it was 3 of us. We started the reading groups, then we in systems in general, systems and networks, to kind of get people interested in like what does it mean to work on that type of, in that area. And then I transitioned to recruiting students that I taught. So this is where I learned, okay, I don't need to get that like amazing, super brilliant. Like I just need someone who I know has gotten the basics that they need in terms of content-wise, skill-wise. So I went to recruiting students that I taught. And there's something important just to give you a note to everyone who's like listening there. It's like grades are never a factor in recruitment. So for me, grades were never the point. Like even for students that I teach, it's not because I'm waiting for the A. It's I'm not waiting for that superstar who can ace the exams. No, I'm looking for the student who can think, the student who's willing to talk, the student who's willing to ask questions. That's what I look for in some of my research students. So that's how I started, and that was a few years ago, and that's how I started my research lab, and we ended up calling it CrowdNets. That was that took us a while to decide on a name. It took us even a longer time to find a logo, and I'm still like, that was actually a logo that was designed by some of my students. It was like a bonus an extra credit project for those who can design the best logo, and this was the logo I liked the most. Anyway, so that's when I started my lab and I got funding. And then we ended up being like, okay, now I have this some form of a structure of how to bring in students into the lab, train them, and then have them get a little bit involved in some of my projects. Maybe not all of my projects, maybe not all the way in depth, but kind of figuring out what are the pieces that they can work on in my projects. And usually the structure was that the first 3 weeks of every new semester we would spend on research training. So it would kind of be that kind of like fast and quick of like, think of sessions, if you remember the structure I showed you in the UR2 PhD course, think of sessions 1 to 5, all done in 3 weeks, being like, this is what you need to know. Here are all the papers you need to read. Here's how and then I would just train them on how to find related work and so on, and we'll just jump in right away. And progress would be medium paced. And whenever we would need to pause and like I would need to do some research training, we would pause in the middle for training. This is where we'll realize, oh, we never talked about the importance of, cleaning up your data. Let's talk about that. We never talked about how to find data. We'll talk about that. We never talked about how to assess your resources or like your venues. Then let's talk about that. That's where, we will pause in the middle and continue the training in the middle. With that, I've been able to have about 4 students in my lab every semester for a few years. That had been working well, and they were all doing great work. They were all producing something. Really, usually they would produce something at the end, whether it is a publication, a full publication at a conference, or whether it's like posters or publications in undergraduate conferences that focus on undergraduate research. And I've also had a couple of students, and again, I'm not going to credit this myself, this is for them, where they managed actually to get awards in their undergraduate presentations because they really liked the research. It was a topic they were passionate about, and they managed to do a lot in that, using that structure. And it was working well. So it was kind of working well for me. And this is where we're like, well, why did I then, kind of join the UR2 PhD? Here's the thing. Typically, the way that the structure works, I've been able to hire students, but I need them to get to a certain level. They have to take a few advanced courses before I can kind of get them involved in my research. But the thing is, that's not really necessary. What I realized over the years with experience is that no, you can get more students. You can get students from their first year and expose them to research from the first year. Because they end up self-selecting. And the thing is that I didn't like it when students ended up self-selecting. I wanted to show them from the beginning that you can do research from your very first year. It's all about just the scope of the research and just understand what computing research is. And that's where the UR2 PhD was perfect. When I learned about the UR2 PhD program, for me, it was like, wait, this is amazing. How can we then, how can we work with that program and bring in more of our younger students into the research process, get them started early? And just have them be part of the process and follow I just wanted to see how will this help our students and how we can bring in more students who never thought that they could do research and bring them into the research cycle that we have already in our institution. So this is where we applied. Oh, this was a D. That's a typo. We applied to be an institutional partner in the spring of 24 last year. We just started this last year. So we had 2 cohorts in the fall and the spring of this year. In fall 24, we recruited 1 first-year student, 5 sophomores, and 2 juniors for the first cohort in the fall. And then the way that we structured the research is that we followed the training course structure to help us define the project background, objectives, and timeline. So we really stuck with the structure of the courses we took things slowly. We just moved with the pace of the course to really understand step by step, like what is research, what is that project about, and step by step kind of identify what is it that we're doing, what's the problem we're trying to solve, and how are we solving it. And then, that gave us then a chance to because I was in the wrong slide. Yep, there we go. That gave us this chance to jump into research right away in the spring. So like the way, because of the logistics here at the college, I hired students for the duration of a whole year. So they were stuck with me for a year. So in the fall, they took the course. In the spring, first day of spring, we started working on it right away. We went right in depth because they had already written a proposal. They have a timeline. They already broke it down into pieces in the fall, and we took our time breaking it down in the fall. And spring was the time where we were like, okay, let's do it. We already know what we want to do. Let's do it. And so for the groups, the students who worked on this, I mean, they have some really amazing output. And then what I did during the spring is I also wanted to experiment a little bit with another model. I wanted to bring in another cohort in the spring, but because I couldn't create more projects, I really had limited capacity here. What I did was I hired 4 sophomores to shadow the lab. Actually, no, not sophomores. Wait, I realize right now 2 of them are first years. I apologize for that. I realize now that 2 of them are actually first years. 2 sophomores and 2 first years to shadow the lab and join. Shadow the lab meaning I did not create new projects for them. They were there to join the projects that had already kind of started, but they joined the course, and their goal was to come up with other problems to try and solve within the same context of the project, to kind of think of like, a little tiny tangent to it, to kind of continue working on the project. And that's what we did this spring. Lessons learned in general was really, I'm going to really talk about the positives here. The course is perfectly tailored to first and second year students with no previous research experience. And over here, this is really the big positive. It was perfect for the first and sophomores, for the first year students and the first semester sophomores. I noticed, because I had 2 juniors, because I wanted to experiment with juniors, I realized that for our institutions for juniors, they had already taken a lot of advanced courses by that point, that the course really, they had learned a lot of those little skills throughout the other courses they were taking at the institution here. So juniors, it wasn't, again, this was the feedback I got from my students. According to my students, it was like it was okay. They loved it, but the course was really designed for the first and second year for our institution, students with no previous research experience. The pace of the course was really well suited for the busy academic year. This was really this is another feedback I got from my students, where it was just perfectly tailored for that busy year where you have time to do research, but like it gives you that structure of how to kind of fit in that research in a very structured way within your academic year. Then from my perspective, students learn actually skills that I don't get a chance to teach. I never train my students on these things, like working on a mentor contract. Usually I have my own contract and I share it with them and they read it, and then I tell them, please read it, and that's it. But in the course, actually in the UR2 PhD course, there is a whole week. There's actually an assignment where the students are asked to go to their faculty mentors and talk to them and have them together fill out the contract, like kind of agree together on what are the communication expectations, what are the meeting expectations, what is expected, what is a completion of the work, to kind of like put those expectations in, to kind of like to help both sides to understand, well, what are we going to get out of this? And this is something I really loved, and I think I'm going to try and use from now on, even for students who are not joining the course, the program. The second thing I really love that I never taught my students to do is writing proposals. Usually I give them this is why this is important. But I realized that with the course, when my students had to write the proposals themselves, they would come back to me and be like, wait, what did you say about this again? Because we don't remember. Wait, why was that important again? So writing proposals was something that I was really surprised by. I realized, wait, this is actually an amazing thing for students to experience in their first semester. And by the end of the course, then we were all excited to execute the work proposal. Like we were at the point where we were like, okay, let's get this done. Like, let's do this. Another feedback that I got from students is that they got to meet researchers from other institutions and grow the networks. That was something that they thought was a very big positive, that they got to see other students working on this and seeing other students outside of the Wellesley College bubble. Like, how do others work on research? How especially that we're a small school, we don't have graduate students. So it was really interesting for them to see how is it that undergraduates work with graduate students, and then what do graduate students do and how do they work with like the bigger structure. So it was good for them to see that hierarchy and see those other institutions. And yeah, that is it from my end. And this is where, we're going to start the Q&A, and I'm going to stop sharing. So we encourage you to please share your questions. Let us know if you have any questions in the chat or the Q&A. And I'm going to take a look and see if we have anything. Go ahead. Let's see. And by the way, you can direct your questions to one of us or just make it a general question if you want. And we'll give you time to type. We know that it takes a while for you to suddenly be like, wait, where's that screen again? Type.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Julia.
Christine and Brian, you both talked about having students involved in the UART PhD program. Can you tell me maybe what was the best part of having students involved as a faculty mentor so that if students are thinking about asking a faculty, like why might they want to get involved?
Brian. Go
I
ahead,
can
Brian.
take that. So I love working with students. And I think most researchers will tell you, I love working with students, but I hate working with students because it's great that they can get these experiences and we can help them and foster that next generation. But man, it's a lot of work because you've got to teach right from the beginning. And oftentimes we forget, oh, students don't just come knowing how to come up with good research questions or how to do a systematic literature review or how to, plan an ethics proposal. And you wind up spending so much time getting them up to the point where they can be helpful, and then they go, is a very common refrain you hear from faculty. That they just say at a certain point it's not worth it, right? Like I would love to get a student working on my paper or my project, but if it's going to take me 100 hours to get them to the point where they can start giving me back, and then at 105 hours they're going to have graduated, I just can't spend that amount of time. So the UR2 PhD program is sort of almost a cheat code where by the time they're done the program, they have gone through that. They've got a really good sense of what you want out of them, what they can achieve, what's reasonable. And it's actually very little requirements from the point of view of the faculty. It's something I would emphasize to your faculty members who might be a little hesitant, is I was quite surprised at how little was required of me other than just occasionally meeting with them and saying, hey, how's it going? How are things? Need any support? Okay, great. No, things are going fine. But then by the time they're done, they're actually ready to make a positive impact on your work. You're almost just getting them up to that cusp point where the amount of work they're saving you is more than the amount that you're putting in. Suddenly it becomes a value proposition.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. I really don't have much to add because that was also a very similar thing that I was going to say, that it was really that redoing the training over and over and over again, because with every new group of students, like Brian mentioned, that like yes, after a semester they might have, they might join another lab. They might realize that research is not for them. And then you're usually retraining students over and over. So having the course there is an amazing resource that's just kind of it taught me that I can't just recruit a student and ask them to jump into a project within 2 weeks. That it's okay to take the time, have them learn the skills that I had to learn over a year or two as a grad student. Like, I don't know, like those skills, usually you don't learn them right away unless you need to. I don't think I ever was given a formal research training course, to be honest with you. I had to learn things as we went. And I realized that no, having the structure is much better. To have them, learn as many skills of those as possible and give them the tools to make the decision. For me, also, that was a big deal. Like making the decision of, do they really want to do research? Is this something that they're really going to do? Or they think they want to do research, but then they realize, oh, no, like then like after they jump in 2 weeks in or 3 weeks in, they're like, oh, that's too much. And they can't take it back. And then they're miserable for the rest of the semester. So that course was also an amazing thing. The whole program was really, really amazing in having that like kind of that scaffolding step at the beginning of like, try it out, learn more about what it is. We're doing it slowly at a very good pace. It's very, very well structured within the semester. And then if you're good to go, we'll keep going. Yeah, thank you, Julie. Yeah, we have a question in the Q&A. I'm going to read it out loud, Brian, and then if you want to. So we're going to answer this live. At what point do you think students would be ready to actually do research? And then they're providing some context here. They said, I participated in a program similar to your 2 PhD at my school, but I still feel overwhelmed at the whole research process, yet feel a bit more prepared than someone with no experience at all. Is there anything else to do besides just jumping into a research project next semester? So I guess they're asking, when are they ready?
I will take that as for the first shot at that.
No.
This was actually something I ran into some problems the first time I got interested in the UR2 PhD program, because I was on another thing with Christine Alvarado, who is part of this whole work. And she was telling me about this, like, this sounds fantastic. This is exactly what I want. And I sent her, I think it was the very first cohort they did, they've already done research projects with me. They are ready to go off to grad school. I think one of them had already applied by that point. And they both kind of came back and went, this isn't for us. This is for maybe a first or second year student who you have a good base of understanding how to be a student, how to work on stuff. But I actually think first or second year of your undergraduate is a perfect time to do it, because if you're waiting till your third or fourth year, they're sort of like, okay, well, we're just learning to start a project and then we'll be gone. And it might seem overwhelming that, oh, I can't do this. I'm only in my second year. That's wild. But the program is actually a very gentle introduction to it, in that it's not overwhelming. It's guiding you very step by step through it. And the other thing that I think in that helps remove that sense of being overwhelmed for students is you're not making a huge commitment. I think part of the problems is students think that research is binary. Either I am never doing research at all in my life, or I am going to go and be a PhD. There's nothing in between. And this program does help you sort of go, I've talked to students and said, if you do this program and then never do anything else with research, that's totally fine. Because if you look back at that list of soft skills that Christine was sharing, those are all incredibly valuable skills, even if you never go into research. Just anyone graduating from university should have those skills. And there's variations, right? Maybe you then work on the project a little bit longer. Maybe you just go and design a whole project. Maybe you go on to grad school, but there's lots of variety in it. So I think the earlier you can do it, the better. But be aware that you're not making a lifelong commitment at this point. You're trying something out, which is what your first and second year of university are kind of geared towards doing.
Yeah, well, I agree. Go ahead, Julie.
I would add that, I mean, the student is asking about like when they would feel prepared to go on to do real research. And I'd argue that programs like you are to PhD and maybe the program that you participated in are preparing you to do real research. And research can look a number of different ways depending on what stage you're at, what research area you're in. So I think just building that confidence, continuing to participate in programs like you are to PhD can help you really get to a point where you feel comfortable, confident, and secure in pursuing something maybe a little bit more broader in scope or more technical in nature.
And I agree with Julia. I was going to say similar things. So the question's like, when, like, to answer the part of the question that said, when am I ready? Like, how do I know if I'm ready? You're ready. That's usually the answer. You're ready. You're going to try it out. And just like Brian said, like, it's not a lifetime commitment. You're ready to try it out. So if you've gotten some skills, then go ahead and ask a faculty and see what type of research you want to work with, and go talk to faculty and kind of go look at other workshops to see like what like tips and tricks of how to go talk to faculty and join their labs. So please, I highly encourage you to do that, and also ask if you want to. We're happy to answer the questions here. But then I would say, if not, if you don't feel like you're ready, or it's not like, oh, you're not like there yet, you're to PhD, do another training course. Why not? Build them again. And that's when we realize, wait, I know everything. And definitely you'll have the confidence then.
Yeah, I think just to bring it back here for that, I guess the other side of this question I get a lot is, well, I'm not ready to actually do the research until I know everything in the background. And this is a very common thing I get when I get grad students. They start, you're like, well, I have to learn everything about the background before I can start doing research. I'll say, well, okay, give me another 20 or 30 years and maybe I will know all the background in an area before I can start doing research. That's not the way this works. You learn as you go. And this idea of don't let perfect be the enemy of good, right? Like, you don't need to be, and Christine was saying, you don't need to be the A plus 4.0 GPA student to be involved in research. You don't need to have read every single paper that exists in the world to research. it's a journey. You're doing this piecemeal as you go.
Conscious of time, I know we have about 1 minute left, so if folks have additional questions, feel free to plug them into the Q&A function. And before we go, we did want to share a couple more things. So if at any point, either now or later down the line, you have questions about UR to PhD or specifically the research training course, you can always find more information on our website. That is cra.org/UR to PhD. You're also welcome to reach out to staff. So myself and my supervisor, Eric Russell, the Director of Educational Initiatives, would be happy to provide additional context or clarity, and you can reach out to us at ur2phd_staff@cra.org. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll hope you'll stay connected. You can follow us on social media if you'd like, where you can learn a little bit more about when our application deadlines are or when additional workshops like this will be happening. So if folks don't have any other questions, we're happy to let you go. Thank you so much for joining us. But if you do, we'll be sticking around.
Thank you all very much for coming and listening. We'll stick around for a little bit if people do have questions, if you want to wait until it's over, or you can contact, I'm sure through any of those social medias, you could get in touch with Christine or myself. We're more than happy to talk to you about this.
Absolutely.